Hello all! Today's luxury location is Toys R Us. Been taking the kids to spend some money from their birthday and Christmas. So speaking of money, and speaking of shops, I want to talk a little bit in this video. So this is carrying on my Edtech on a budget for schools, and I want to talk a bit about the type of hardware that we buy and how we use it and how we think through those choices. So if you've got a decent budget one year and you need to refresh all your machines, for example, all your PCs or whatever, it can be tempting to think, right, I'll get Apple Mac, especially if you're really into Apple products. Now, I'm not dissing Apple products, other than they're very specific for a reason. So if I was doing media, and if you're a college specialising in media projects, then yes, get a load of Apple Macs. But I've seen instances where nursery schools and infant schools have kitted out completely in Apple Macs, and that's just, it's an irresponsible use of money in my view, in the sense that most of those pupils will not be getting out of it what an Apple Mac is built for. So are they going to get £1,000 worth out of that versus 5 PCs costing £200? Or even 2 and a bit PCs costing £400 with the same kind of power behind them. Now yes, you have to be more careful around viruses and it crashing and things like that. However, you're not likely to be using all the kind of software that comes free. But the main thing about kitting out in Apple Macs, and not just Apple, there are lots of other examples of things that cost a lot of money that you might want to do, but the main thing you've got to think about is the pupils you are teaching, are they going to go home and have access to an Apple Mac? Ever? Because if they're not, then setting them up to learn the way, not just the way an Apple Mac works, but you're likely to be using iMovie and all the different things that come with an Apple Mac, which they're not going to have access to. So realistically, they're not going to be able to carry on that learning at home. You're limiting their choice of actually carrying on with what they're learning. And it's important also to be able to choose and pick what is relevant for your needs. So you don't want to also get in their heads that in order to do well at university they need an Apple Mac, which might then put pressure on their parents to buy them an Apple Mac for university, when actually a £200 netbook would absolutely do fine for writing essays on. Again, depending on what kind of thing that they're going to go and study. So it's important to think all the way through. It's not just a case of can you afford Apple Macs or can you afford this or that. The other thing is even, what do they use at home, and can we kind of use the same sort of things, and also think about the software that you put on them as well. So Microsoft, for example, you might buy a Microsoft PC, but do you need to have Microsoft Word, or can you use something that they can also access at home, like OpenOffice, LibreOffice, something where they can use it at home so that they can carry on and they can download it for free at home as well. So think about open source software that goes on those machines as well. Another thing we did at my school was we actually found that what most people had at home that had any access to internet and or being able to use it and carry on at home was the thing that every family had at least one of was a Nintendo DSi, a Nintendo DS. And those link up really well, and there's loads of things you can use them for in the classroom. So I bought 16 of those, which is one between 2 for the pupils and then 1 for the teacher, and you can do loads of linking up, which doesn't even need Wi-Fi. So if you don't have really good Wi-Fi, that's another thing when you look at your hardware. Don't buy a load of hardware. I was speaking to a school recently who bought 30 iPads. They had the budget for 30 iPads, that's fine. Turns out their Wi-Fi can only handle 15 being online at the same time. So they could have just bought 15, and they could have done lots of other things with the rest of the money, potentially even increase their bandwidth to be able to have better Wi-Fi. And it would be better to have more Wi-Fi than you need than to have more iPads than you can use at any one time if the purpose is to go online. So think really hard about your hardware. Think about, is it going to be as useful as I think it is? Am I buying it for vanity? Am I buying it because it's an ideological kind of thing to have iPads and Macs and to look flash for parents coming around and things like that? And it can be really good, but if you're not using them to their full capacity, I always had a mixture. So we mostly had PCs, but I did have MacBooks available and a couple of Apple Macs for when we did do specific media projects. Because I think it's important for people to know that if you want to do something very specific on media, then yes, Apple is the way to go. But if you're just using Word, or you're just word processing, or you're making PowerPoints and things like that, then, or even kind of all sorts of free software and things run absolutely fine on PC. So if your budget's going to be limited after you've bought all the machines, then think very carefully about how that money's spent to make sure that it's A, things that they can replicate at home, B, it's not so aspirational they're never going to be able to use one again once they leave your school, and C, think about what kind of software you're then going to be able to put on it and afford to put on it that's going to then boost it and increase the use of them as well. And are you going to get that much money's worth out of them? If you've got 10 grand left over in your ICT budget at the end of the year, brilliant, buy some more books for the library, or I'm sure there's a million other ways you can spend it. You don't need to spend the whole lot just because it sounds like a great idea. So again, I don't want this to come across as bashing Apple, because I'm absolutely not. I think that it absolutely has its place, but think very, very carefully about whether that's spending on Apple as a whole thing. The whole school Apple is going to be the best thing for your pupils who go home and don't have access to Apple when they get home. They've got a cheaper Android tablet, they've got a netbook or a PC at home, or a Chromebook. So think about whether having a mixture might at least give them the opportunity to do some things at school that carry on at home, and some things at home that they can then bring into school. So that's it. Buying hardware, think very carefully, think about some bargains. Even Toys R Us has some bargains on stuff that you can get for school. So bargain hard, think about what's the most appropriate, and think about what your pupils have and where they're buying from, and what kind of things they might have: consoles, netbooks, laptops, Chromebooks, type of phones they use, all of that. Take it into consideration when you buy your hardware for school too. Thanks for listening. Bye.